The village of Windmere was a quiet place, perched upon cliffs that overlooked the unmoving waters of the sleeping sea. Its cottages, built of weathered stone and driftwood, leaned together like old friends, their roofs patched with moss. Fishing nets hung like cobwebs across doorways, though no one had cast them in years. The villagers lived in a hush, as though even their voices feared disturbing the silence of the sea. No gulls cried above the cliffs. No waves struck the shore. It was a stillness so heavy that even the children had learned not to laugh too loudly. But Isla had never been good at silence. She was small and slight, with dark hair that always seemed tangled by a wind that no longer blew. Her eyes were restless, filled with questions. While others accepted the still sea as a curse to endure, Isla would often sneak to the cliff's edge, staring into its glassy depths, hoping for even the smallest ripple. "Why does no one light the tower?" she asked her grandmother once, pointing at the lighthouse that loomed far down the coast. Its stones were gray with age, and ivy clawed its walls like green fire. Her grandmother shook her head. "That tower belongs to the old days. They say its keeper vanished the night the sea fell asleep. Since then, no one has dared to climb it. But what if the light came back?" Isla pressed. Her grandmother only sighed and pulled her shawl tighter. "Child, there are things we do not wake. The sea is one of them." That night, Isla dreamed again. In her dream, she stood inside the lighthouse, its spiraling stairs stretching up and up into the stars. At the top burned a flame so bright it painted the sea with color: indigo waves, golden crests, silver foam that danced. She heard music too, as though the water itself was singing. When she awoke, she could still hear the echo of that voice. The light must return, or all will fade. Isla sat up in her small wooden bed, her heart pounding. She knew dreams were only dreams. Her grandmother told her so, but this one felt different. It felt like a calling. The next morning, while the village prepared their meager meals of root vegetables and salted fish from long ago, Isla slipped away. She carried a lantern her father once used when fishing at night. Its glass was cracked, but when she struck flint against steel, a small, brave flame flickered to life. She held it close as she walked the path along the cliffs, the lighthouse always in her sight. The air smelled faintly of salt and stone. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The closer she came, the taller the lighthouse grew. Its door was bound by rusted chains, but the moment she touched them, they crumbled like sand, as though the tower had been waiting for her. Isla stepped inside. Dust swirled in the faint light, and the air smelled of iron and seaweed. The spiral staircase stretched above her, broken in places, but steady enough to climb. She placed her lantern before her and began to ascend, each step groaning under her small weight. Though she was alone, she felt a presence, something vast and patient, watching. She whispered to herself to keep the silence away. The light must return. The light must return. And with each step, the tower seemed to breathe again. The spiral staircase creaked under Isla's steps, each groan echoing up the tower like a warning. Her lantern flame trembled, but she shielded it with her hand, whispering again, "The light must return." Halfway up, she stopped. The silence pressed too deeply, thicker than any she had felt in the village. It was not empty silence, it was listening silence. She felt as though the walls themselves leaned in closer, waiting for her to speak. Her breath misted in the air though no wind touched her. The hairs on her arms stood upright. Then she heard it. A whisper. It slithered through the stones like water seeping through cracks. Low, fragile, and yet it carried as though someone stood beside her. "Why do you climb, child?" Isla's lantern nearly slipped from her grasp. She turned, expecting to see someone behind her, but there was nothing. Only shadows. I came to see the light," she stammered. "To bring it back." A pause. The whisper deepened, curling like smoke. "The light sleeps, because the sea sleeps. The sea sleeps, because I no longer keep the flame." "Who are you?" Isla whispered back, clutching the lantern tight. "I am what remains of the keeper," the voice replied. "Bound to stone, bound to silence. The sea claimed my body, but my duty holds me still." Isla's eyes widened. The keeper. Her grandmother had spoken of him, the man who vanished when the sleeping sea began. The villagers said he was cursed, devoured by the ocean. But here, his voice lingered. Why did the sea fall asleep? She asked softly. For a long moment, the whisper did not answer. She thought the silence had swallowed it again. Then, faintly, because the heart of the sea was stolen, and without it, neither wave nor wind may stir. The heart of the sea. Isla frowned. A gem of living water. A song frozen in stone. Without it, the lighthouse cannot burn. Without it, the sea cannot breathe. Her chest tightened. She thought of the villagers, their quiet sorrow, their empty nets. Was it all because of this missing heart? Where is it? She asked quickly. The whisper was heavy now, like an old man trying to rise from a long sleep. Lost, deep in the stillness. Hidden by shadows. Guarded by silence. Only the bearer of flame may seek it. The flame in her lantern flickered, rising higher for a moment, as if answering. Then I'll find it, Isla said, her voice firmer now. I'll bring it back. The whisper sighed, part sorrow, part relief. Beware, child, the sea dreams dark dreams. To wake it is to face them. Yet, you are the first to climb. Perhaps, you are the one. And then, silence returned. Isla stood still, the echoes of the whisper ringing in her bones. She looked up toward the darkened top of the lighthouse. If the heart of the sea was stolen, then she would go after it. No matter where the silence tried to lead her. Her small lantern glowed brighter, as though courage itself fed the flame. She climbed higher, each step no longer hesitant but steady, carrying her into the unknown. The staircase ended at a round chamber beneath the lantern room. Its walls were bare stone, cracked by time, and the great glass windows were thick with dust and salt. The lantern above her head, the mighty lamp that once guided ships, was dark, its metal frame rusted, its mirrors shattered. Yet something pulsed faintly within the chamber. Isla raised her lantern higher. The flame's glow spilled across the floor, revealing carvings, lines and curves cut deep into the stone itself. At first, they seemed like nothing more than scratches, but as her lantern flame steadied, she realized they formed shapes. Waves, currents, islands, stars. It was a map. Her heart quickened. The entire chamber floor was carved with a sprawling design of sea and sky, etched so carefully that it seemed alive. She stepped closer, brushing dust away with her fingertips. As her hand moved, the carvings shimmered faintly, as though her touch woke something long asleep. Suddenly, the whispering voice returned, softer now, as though carried through a seashell. The silent waters, charted in stone, the path to the heart lies within. Isla froze. This is the way. Yes, the keeper breathed. But the path is hidden until the flame reveals it. Place your light, child, upon the sea. Her lantern trembled in her hands. She looked down at the map again. The central carving was a wide circle, smooth and deep, like a bowl at the map's heart. It glimmered faintly even without light. Isla knelt and placed her lantern within the hollow. The flame flared, suddenly brighter, as though feeding on the carvings around it. Gold light spread across the etched lines, racing like rivers through the stone. The chamber bloomed with radiance as the map awoke. Waves rippled in golden arcs, islands glowed like stars, and currents pulsed like veins. She gasped as the still floor seemed to move, an illusion of flowing water, guided by her tiny flame. At the center of the glowing map, a single point of light shone brighter than all others, deep in the sea's engraving. There, the keeper whispered. The heart of the sea. Isla's breath caught. It was far from shore, hidden where no boat had dared to sail since the silence fell. How can I reach it? She asked. The sea slumbers. Its waters do not move. But the map will guide you. Follow the lights. Trust the flame. The lantern's glow flickered, and new lines appeared, threads of fire weaving across the map, forming a path that curved like a serpent toward the glowing center. Isla stared, her pulse quickening. She had never left the cliffs of Windmere. The thought of sailing over the still, endless water filled her with dread, but also with wonder. The flame seemed to sense her hesitation, flickering brighter, as if to say, "You are not alone." "I'll do it," she whispered aloud, steadying herself. "I'll bring the heart back." Her fingers traced the glowing path one last time, committing its shape to memory. Then she lifted her lantern from the hollow, and as she did, the golden lines dimmed, retreating back into silence. Only the faint shimmer at the center remained, pulsing like a heartbeat. Isla turned toward the spiral stairs. The journey would not wait. She would need a boat. She would need courage. She would need to believe that one small flame could awaken the sea. The village of Windmere stirred faintly as dawn painted the horizon in pale gold. Smoke rose from chimneys, and weary villagers prepared their meager meals. None noticed Isla slipping quietly down to the harbor, her lantern tucked close to her chest. The boats that once carried fishermen to sea lay rotting on the shore. Their sails were torn, their ropes stiff with salt. No one had dared to use them in years, for the sleeping sea was not a place to trust. Its waters did not move, and ships that entered were said never to return. But as Isla walked among the husks, her lantern flame flickered eagerly, pulling her toward one vessel at the farthest end. It was small, carved from weathered oak. Though its paint had peeled away and barnacles clung to its hull, the boat was intact. Its sail, though ragged, still hung strong. "This one," Isla whispered. As if answering, the lantern's flame flared brighter, casting a golden reflection upon the boat's prow. To her astonishment, the wood glimmered faintly where the light touched, as though it remembered a time when it had sailed before. She climbed in. The boat groaned under her weight, but instead of sinking into silence, it floated gently, rocking once, though the sea itself remained still as glass. "The boat remembers the currents," came the whisper of the keeper, faint as the tide. "Long ago, it sailed with the waves. Now it shall carry you where none else dare go." Isla set her lantern at the bow. Immediately, lines of gold shimmered across the boat's surface, curling like veins into the sail and oarlocks. It was as though the vessel had awakened, answering her flame. She pushed away from the dock. To her amazement, the boat glided forward, though the sea did not stir. It moved as if carried by invisible currents, guided by the path she had seen on the lighthouse map. The village grew smaller behind her. She could almost feel the silence watching, thick and expectant. Hours passed, yet the boat never slowed. The horizon remained endless, the sky pale and still. She saw no gulls, no fish, no movement at all, only her reflection in the glassy water below, wavering in the lantern's glow. But as night drew near, the stillness deepened into something heavier. The silence was no longer simply absence, it was weight. A pressure that pushed against her heart, whispering doubts into her ear. "You are small. You will be swallowed. The sea does not want to wake." Isla gripped the boat's side, her knuckles white. The flame wavered, almost guttering out. "No," she whispered fiercely. "The light must return. The sea must wake." Her words seemed to pierce the silence. The flame steadied, growing tall and steady once more. The boat surged forward, gliding faster into the night. Far ahead, faintly, she saw something rising from the horizon, shapes that gleamed like silver teeth. Towers of stone or coral, glimmering faintly in the lantern's reflection. The path was leading her somewhere. Somewhere the silence guarded closely. She pressed her hand to the lantern, letting its warmth soak into her fingers. "Take me there," she whispered. And the boat obeyed, carried by forgotten currents into the heart of the sleeping sea. The boat glided soundlessly toward the silver shapes rising from the horizon. As Isla drew closer, her breath caught. They were not towers of stone at all, but colossal pillars of coral, petrified and pale, reaching out of the sea like the bones of giants. Some curved like arches, others jutted jagged into the sky, each etched with patterns so intricate they seemed carved by hands rather than grown. The lantern's glow made them shimmer faintly, as though the coral remembered sunlight. The boat slowed between them, drifting through a labyrinth of gleaming spires. The water here was darker, deeper. Isla leaned over the side, peering down. For the first time, she saw movement beneath the glassy surface, shadows twisting far below, too slow, too vast to name. A shiver climbed her spine. Then came the sound. At first it was only a murmur, like the sigh of a seashell. But as the boat entered deeper between the towers, the murmur grew into voices. They echoed across the coral walls, rising and falling like waves that did not exist. Some sounded mournful, others sharp, some so faint they seemed to come from memory itself. The voices overlapped, endless, like a sea of whispers trapped in stone. Isla clutched her lantern. "Who's there?" The voices swelled, not answering, but repeating words caught in endless loops. Fragments of songs, cries, prayers. They did not speak to her, they spoke to themselves, as if the coral held every sound ever made upon the sleeping sea before it fell silent. She covered her ears, but still the echoes pressed inside her mind. Turn back, the sea does not wake. The keeper is gone, gone, gone. Light the flame, flame, flame. Her heart raced. It was overwhelming, a tide of memories drowning her thoughts. She was just about to cry out when suddenly, the flame in her lantern pulsed, sending out a ring of golden light. The echoes recoiled, hissing, then softened. The chaotic voices wove themselves into a single tone, a low, resonant hum, like a guiding chord. And with that sound, Isla saw it. A symbol carved into the coral tower directly before her. It glowed faintly, awakened by the lantern's flame, a spiral, curling inward like the shell of a nautilus. She leaned forward, recognizing it instantly. It was the same spiral that had marked the path on the lighthouse map. This is the way, she realized. The lantern light stretched forward, forming a golden thread across the water, guiding her boat through the maze of coral towers. The hum grew steadier, a path of sound as well as light. Yet as she followed, she felt the shadows below stir again. The stillness trembled with unease. Something vast was aware of her now, shifting beneath the glassy surface. Her grip tightened on the boat's edge. "I'm not afraid," she whispered, though her voice quivered. "The light must return." The coral echoed her words back to her, but softer, like a promise. "The light must return, the light must return." Her courage steadied. The boat glided forward, threading the labyrinth until the coral towers faded behind her. Ahead lay only deeper silence, darker waters, and the next test of her journey. Beyond the coral towers, the sea stretched endlessly again, smooth as polished obsidian. The boat drifted forward, guided by the golden thread of light that shimmered ahead. Isla sat very still, her lantern pressed close, for the silence here was heavier than before, so heavy it felt like the whole world leaned upon her shoulders. Then she noticed it. The water was not perfectly still. Something vast shifted beneath the glassy surface. At first, she thought it was only her reflection, dark, rippling, but as the lantern flame brightened, she saw it more clearly. A shadow, moving deep below, too large to belong to any fish she knew. Its outline was blurred, serpentine, stretching longer than her boat, perhaps longer than the coral towers themselves. Isla's heart thundered. The shadow circled slowly beneath her boat, tracing a ring. The water remained unbroken, yet she could feel the weight of its gaze, cold and immense. "Do not fear," came the faint whisper of the keeper in her mind. "The sea dreams, and in its dreams dwell shadows. They are not truly alive, but they can still touch you." As if to prove his warning, the water shivered, just slightly, and the shadow rose nearer the surface. Isla clutched the side of the boat, staring as its vague shape pressed against the underside of the sea like a beast beneath glass. A massive eye flickered open, pale and lidless, staring straight at her through the watery barrier. She gasped and almost dropped her lantern. At once, the flame flickered violently, nearly dying. The shadow pressed harder against the surface, as though testing it. For a heartbeat, Isla was certain it would break through. "No," she cried, holding the lantern high. "The light must return. You cannot have it." The flame roared suddenly taller, blazing against the silence. Golden fire spilled across the surface of the sea, and the shadow recoiled, curling back into the depths. The water smoothed again, flawless and dark. Isla panted, her knuckles white around the lantern's handle. She understood now. The shadows beneath the glass were not real creatures, but dreams of the sleeping sea, dark imaginings given shape. They could frighten, confuse, even overwhelm, but they had no true power against the flame. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to speak aloud. "I will not be afraid. I carry the light. I carry the sea's hope." The lantern steadied, glowing with calm warmth. Ahead, the golden thread brightened, leading her further into the silent expanse. Yet she knew the shadows would return. And each time, they might grow stronger. Still, she straightened her back, gripping the lantern with both hands. If the sea dreamed dark dreams, then she would be the flame that cut through them. And the boat sailed on, into the heart of the stillness. The boat drifted for what felt like hours, the horizon unchanging, until at last Isla saw shapes rising from the still sea. Not towers this time, but islands, small, scattered, their shores gleaming as though polished. As she drew closer, she realized why they shimmered. Their surfaces were not sand or stone, but mirror-like glass, smooth and flawless. Each island reflected the sky above, the stars, even the lantern flame in her boat. They were beautiful and unsettling, like fragments of the sea itself risen into the air. Her boat glided toward the largest isle. The moment her foot touched its surface, she froze. It reflected not just the sky, but her. A perfect Isla stood before her on the mirrored ground, lantern in hand, eyes bright with determination. At first, she thought it was only her reflection. But then the mirrored Isla smiled and whispered, "You are brave. You will save the sea." Isla blinked. Her reflection was speaking back. She stepped further, and suddenly more reflections rose from the mirror surface. One by one, they formed around her. Dozens of Isla, each holding a lantern, each whispering words she longed to hear. "You are chosen. You cannot fail. The sea waits for you." For a heartbeat, her heart swelled with comfort. She wasn't alone, there were so many voices echoing her own courage. But then she noticed something. Some of the reflections twisted as they spoke. Their smiles were too sharp, their eyes too dark. A few flickered like shadows, their voices turning bitter. "You are small. You will drown. You are nothing but a girl with a broken lantern." The voices overlapped, some encouraging, some cruel. Isla's breath quickened, her pulse racing. She turned in circles, but there were too many of them, hundreds of mirrored selves crowding around her, their whispers clawing into her thoughts. The lantern flickered, confused by her wavering heart. "No," she whispered, clutching it tighter. "The light must return. The sea must wake." Her true voice steadied the flame. Its golden glow spread across the mirrored surface, burning away the twisted reflections. One by one, the cruel voices fell silent, their images dissolving like smoke. At last, only one reflection remained before her, the original, her truest self. The mirrored Isla looked at her with calm eyes. She raised her lantern and spoke only once. "Do not doubt. The sea's heart beats in you now." Then the reflection melted back into the glassy surface, leaving Isla standing alone. Her lantern burned stronger than ever, its light unshaken. She understood now, the mirror isles had shown her the weight of doubt, and the strength she carried within. She returned to her boat, the golden thread stretching onward, guiding her past the mirrored islands. Behind her, the glassy shores fell silent, holding the echoes of her courage. The golden thread led Isla into waters darker than any she had yet crossed. Even the stars above seemed dimmer here, veiled as though afraid to shine. The sea felt heavy, ancient, burdened with memories too vast to hold. At last, she saw it, a structure rising from the waves, not coral nor stone, but something stranger. It was a tower of clock faces, rusted and broken, their hands frozen in impossible positions. Sand trickled upward instead of down within cracked hourglasses, and bells tolled soundlessly in the night air. Isla's lantern flickered uneasily as her boat reached its base. She climbed the slippery steps, her heart quickening. At the summit sat a figure draped in robes made of tide-stained parchment. His face was half hidden by a mask of silver, his hands skeletal and dripping with seawater. In one palm he held a great hourglass, but its sand did not fall, it swirled in endless circles, trapped in a loop. When he spoke, his voice echoed as if stretched across centuries. "I am the keeper of drowned time. I guard the hours the sea has lost." Isla swallowed, clutching her lantern. "The sea is sleeping. The light has gone. Can you help me find it?" The keeper tilted his head, the silver mask gleaming. "Do you not know, child? The sea does not merely sleep. It remembers. Every tide, every storm, every silence, these are moments it carries. But too many moments have drowned. Time here is broken, tangled in sorrow." He lifted the hourglass. The sand inside surged wildly, images flickering in its flow, ships swallowed by storms, coral cities fading into ruin, stars collapsing into the waves. "Unless the thread of time is mended, the sea will never wake," he murmured. Isla stepped closer, her resolve firm. Then tell me how to mend it. The lantern is strong, I will carry its light. For a moment, the keeper was silent, as if weighing her soul. Finally, he extended his hand. In it appeared a fragment of glass shaped like a crescent moon, etched with runes. This is the shard of hours. With it, you may weave broken time back into the sea. But beware, the shadows hunger for it. They will seek to twist your path. Isla took the shard carefully, feeling its cool weight. As her lantern's light touched it, the glass shimmered, threads of gold and silver weaving through its cracks. Go, the keeper whispered, his voice fading like an echo at low tide. The drowned past waits to be healed. But know this, time will test you. And not all memories wish to be remembered. The tower shuddered. The broken clocks groaned, their hands twitching faintly as if the keeper's gift had disturbed their stillness. Isla hurried back to her boat, the shard of hours clutched to her chest. The golden thread reappeared across the water, guiding her onward. Behind her, the keeper remained, frozen upon his tower, a solitary figure watching as though caught between centuries, forever guarding the sea's forgotten time. The golden thread led Isla deeper into the sleeping sea, where the water stretched like polished obsidian. Her boat drifted forward without oars, guided by something greater than the wind. The silence grew thicker here, pressing against her ears until even the sound of her own breath seemed foreign. At last, she reached a place where the sea itself shifted. Before her stretched an immense mirror of water, a perfect, unbroken sheet reflecting the sky so flawlessly that she could not tell which way was above or below. Stars shimmered above her, and beneath her, doubled in an endless expanse. The lantern pulsed as if sensing the place's power. Isla clutched the shard of hours, its light blending with the lantern's glow until threads of silver and gold braided together, casting ripples across the mirrored sea. Then the surface stirred. From the reflection beneath, shadows began to rise, forms shaped like herself. Dozens of Isla climbed from the glassy water, each with eyes dark as storms. Some were older, some younger, some twisted by sorrow, anger, or fear. Her breath caught. They surrounded her, voices whispering like waves pulling at the shore. You are too small. You will fail as others have. You will drown before the sea wakes. Isla's hands shook. Each reflection was a doubt, a fear she had carried secretly in her heart. For a moment, she wanted to close her eyes, to let the sea swallow her. But then she remembered the keeper's words, time will test you. Not all memories wish to be remembered. Raising the shard of hours, she held it high. Its runes blazed, and within its glass she saw not fear but truth. Her mother's gentle smile, her father's calloused hands pulling nets from the waves, the children of Windmere waiting for dawn. The shard glowed brighter, weaving itself with the lantern's light. She turned toward her shadows. You are not me, she whispered fiercely. You are pieces of what I feared. But I am more than my fears. One by one, the shadow Isla dissolved into ripples, their whispers fading. The mirror calmed, the surface smoothing until it reflected only the true night sky. From the center of the mirrored sea rose a pedestal of crystal. Upon it lay a conch-shaped mirror, its surface glowing faintly as though it held the memory of tides. Isla stepped forward, trembling but steady, and lifted the relic. The mirror of silent tides thrummed in her hands, heavy with memory. She gazed into it, and saw not her face, but visions, waves rolling awake, the lighthouse blazing like a star, and the sea teeming with life once more. Tears stung her eyes. She knew, with unshakable certainty, that the end of her journey was near. The sea was ready, all that remained was to bring its light back home. The lantern flared, and the golden thread stretched forward once more, pointing her toward the horizon where the lighthouse of the sleeping sea waited. The golden thread shimmered like dawn across the horizon, leading Isla's little boat back to the cliffs of Windmere. Above them loomed the silent lighthouse, its stone dark with moss, its glass lantern cracked and empty. For 100 years it had slept, just as the sea had slept below it. The shard of hours pulsed in her hand. The mirror of silent tides lay at her side, glowing softly like the sea's memory. And the lantern she carried, the very heart of her journey, burned brighter than it ever had, a light woven with all she had gathered, courage, truth, and time itself. Isla climbed the winding stairs of the lighthouse, each step echoing in the hollow chamber. The villagers had gathered far below, staring up at her with fearful wonder. For generations, they had spoken only of the sleeping sea's curse. Now they watched a child dare what none had. At the top, she stood before the cold lantern glass. It was cracked, weary, but not broken. She lifted her little lantern, holding it close. Her voice shook but did not falter. "Wake, great sea, the light returns." The shard of hours fused into the lantern. The mirror of silent tides unfolded like a shell, pouring silver brilliance into the flame. Together, they merged, time, memory, and courage igniting in one radiant blaze. A single spark leapt into the great lens of the lighthouse. And then, light, it burst outward in a wave, brighter than sun, brighter than stars. The lantern glass healed as if reborn, the beacon's fire roaring to life. Golden beams swept across the ocean, striking the still surface of the sleeping sea. For a heartbeat, nothing stirred. Then the water rippled, first a tremor, then a swell. The surface, glassy for centuries, began to move, waves rolling, breaking, tumbling with laughter like a child long asleep awakening with joy. The silence shattered into music, gulls crying, tides crashing, the sea's heartbeat restored. Coral towers far below bloomed with color. Fish darted in silver shoals, whales sang in echoes not heard for generations. Even the shadows, those restless fragments of fear, dissolved into foam. The villagers fell to their knees, tears glistening as dawn itself broke across the horizon. For the first time in memory, the world felt alive. Isla stood at the beacon's heart, her face aglow with the light she had carried. She did not feel small anymore. She felt as vast as the waves below, as strong as the tides themselves. The lighthouse spoke, not in words, but in warmth, in brilliance. Its flame was her flame now, eternal, unquenchable. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. No sea sleeps forever. No light is ever truly lost. And as the waves danced below, Isla knew the sea had awakened, not only for the world, but for her own heart as well. Wave moral lesson. The lighthouse of the sleeping sea reminds us that even in silence and stillness, there is potential for renewal. True light is not just a flame carried in a lantern, it is the courage to face fears, the strength to remember who we are, and the hope to awaken what seems lost. No darkness, however deep, can resist a heart that refuses to give up its light. For more motivation fairy tale stories, please like, share and subscribe this channel. Thanks and God bless.